Hey everyone, Nick from Mossy Creek with this week's fly fishing forecast. Today is Tuesday, October 10th. Sorry we're a little bit behind. We were short-staffed yesterday, so we're just getting to it this morning. But we got a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, don't have a whole lot to say on the rain front, but we do have a lot of seasonal changes coming that are gonna spark some changes kind of throughout the rest of the fall with our fishing. So let's get right into it. Rain, okay? We've been talking about it all summer long. Fortunately, we didn't get really anything this week. We're still looking pretty low in our specific area of the county, in the valley here. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot on the horizon, so we'll keep our fingers crossed for some big storms just to kind of replenish everything. There's still options. We'll talk about that this week, but as you start to see the state stock, as we go into the fall and a lot of our spawning for our browns and our brookies, the more water we can get, the better. So you're gonna hear us keep talking about it. I don't want it to scare you away from fishing because there's still a lot of options, especially if you're willing to drive a little bit, but it does play a big role in what we're seeing and how we fish for these fish. And so it's something we gotta talk about. So we're coming right out of pretty much a 3-day stretch of temperatures in like mid-low 30s overnight. So this tends to be one of the things that really kind of kicks us into fall fishing, especially on the river. Cool days, but cool nights start to really drop those water temperatures. If we look kind of in the extended forecast right now, there's a couple days like higher 70s later in the week, but then from there on out, like we're looking at 60s, low 40s, and even the 30s most nights. So this is really our big change. Last week we had some 80-degree days. It was kind of our last, summer temperatures. This looks like this is here to stay. So let's talk about what that means. On the river, the Shenandoah, our bigger warm water rivers, we're really starting to see some transition now. Last week I did a couple smallmouth floats early in the week, and it was still like high of 80, a little bit cooler nights, but nothing like we've seen the last few nights. And the fish were already starting to show signs of moving a good bit. If you'd been floating the river all summer long, some of these runs and long holes, that start as a little riffle and slowly, gradually get longer, you were seeing fish kind of spread throughout it all summer long. You'd catch them in the head, catch them out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere you didn't think they'd be, like there were really fish spread everywhere. That's not the case right now. You'll go through a lot of these holes, and honestly, water that's 3-4 feet or shallower, there's very few fish in them compared to what we've seen this summer. You're gonna see that a lot of those fish had moved kind of into the deeper holes. If there's a stretch and it's shallower water, all about the same depth, and all of a sudden there's like a depression where it's 4, 5, 6 feet deep, a lot of fish were stacked into those places. And then as you got to the end of those holes and we get into our big deep holes, we're really seeing fish kind of start to push towards that. Haven't been on the river in the last couple of days, but with those really cold nights I talked about, we're probably gonna see even more of that transition into the winter holes. So fishing's not dead, doesn't mean you can't go smallmouth fishing, but you do need to kind of change stuff up a little bit. No need to get out there early, let things warm up a little bit. It's still really low and clear, pretty much base flow. Linwood gauge is around like 200 CFS. So those fish are spooky, especially with them all potted up. So long leaders, long cast, stealthy approach, all that's really important. Still having a little bit of dry fly fishing, topwater fishing, some damselflies still around, a few cicadas. But with these cold nights, we are gonna start to see that slowly kind of taper off. And if you do any winter fishing or late fall fishing, it's gonna be primarily subsurface. So look for those changes. You gotta fish it a little bit different than you did this summer. Those fish aren't in the same places. They're gonna start to stack up. They're gonna get in those bigger pools and start to slow down towards kind of their winter cycles. So musky fishing has been pretty good too. The low clear water definitely makes it a little bit tougher, but they've been out on the chew. We've talked about last couple of weeks, we've been catching them just while we're bass fishing some. So there's still stuff to do on the river, but like I said, seasons are changing. It's definitely a little bit different now. So our spring creeks, we're still primarily kind of in the same situation. Mossy's fishing pretty well, but getting low and clear again. South River, Buffalo Creek, those are your best options close by. I actually got a report from Buffalo last week that it was pretty low as well. Person who fished there did best fishing the riffles and some of the moving water where those fish weren't near as spooky. So, you know, it's interesting. I've had a lot of trips this week where clients are coming from Washington, D.C., Richmond, all over the place, and they're like very surprised at our low water. It has been pretty isolated, at least as of late, like here in kind of our area of the valley and the surrounding counties. You know, just north of us, south of us, west of us have gotten pretty good rain, and we've just been in this little bubble. And so Andy mentioned it last week, like if you're willing to travel a little bit, there's still good places to fish in the state. If you look at the gauges and like the map of all the gauges in the state, there's still places that have good or above average water. So if you're willing to jump over into West Virginia, you know, head south a little bit, head over to the Blue Ridge, there's still places to get after some good fishing. But any rain that we can get is going to be a big help. A little bit more on the spring creeks, cooler nights. I haven't seen any like actual hard frost yet. The hard frost is usually what kills off a lot of our terrestrials. So we haven't quite been there yet, but we're transitioning to it. I'm seeing less hoppers and crickets and stuff in the grass than I have in previous weeks. Doesn't mean you can't fish them, but our fishing is going to start to go primarily more subsurface as we move into the fall. So don't be afraid to still fish a hopper dropper with a big cricket or a big, you know, grasshopper or something, an ant or a trico if there's a fish that's feeding and a little bit more picky, but you are going to see a lot of that start to taper off a little bit. Brown trout will be spawning here before too long. We've seen small signs of some random fish pairing up here and there. That's going to get heavier as we get later into October. So as always, if you see spawning fish or paired up fish, you know, let them be. There's plenty of rainbows and other fish to fish for, you know, fish that aren't as mature and aren't spawning. So just keep an eye on that. But gearing up into that spawn, the streamer fishing can be really good. And that's what we've seen in the last few days on the spring creeks is that streamer fishing starting to get hot. So standing over here by our streamer bin, we've got a lot of articulated stuff and fun stuff that you streamer fishermen love to pick up and fish this time of year, myself included. So start to think about that. I have people come in all the time and ask me, hey, like, which streamer do I need? Excuse me. That's a hard question to answer. What I tell people, more important than coming in and grabbing the one streamer that's right for fishing is to have variation in what you have. So you're better off having different colors, different weights, ways that you can fish different types of runs, different type of water, how the fish are acting throughout the day. Having variation in the patterns you have is a lot more important than coming in and finding one streamer that works. Because if you ask a bunch of different streamer fishermen, you might get different answers. So come in, get some heavy streamers, some jig stuff that imitates our sculpins and, you know, or crayfish and stuff that's on the bottom. Get some minnow patterns that sit higher in the water column. Get some stuff that's easy to dead drift, some stuff that you can sink way up under an undercut. Going that route and having those different options is one of the best things you can do for your streamer box. So lastly, brook trout fishing, a lot of our local mountain streams are still super low. As far as I know, the park is still closed down to fishing up there. We're going to need a good bit of water to really change that. With those brook trout going into the spawn here soon, at least locally, there's not going to be a whole lot of brook trout fishing here in the near future. If you're somewhere or you head somewhere that does have good water, you can still get a little bit more brook trout fishing in, fishing small streamers, fishing dry droppers, fishing nymph rigs. They're going to start getting real colored up for the fall. So it's exciting. I love the fall. We got a lot going on. The state is going to start to stock more as we get more water. If you look at the stocking schedule, you'll see there's not a whole lot happening here yet. We're going to be waiting on water. They're going to typically stock our ponds and lakes and stuff first. I just looked. It looked like South River and Grottos is about the only place in Rockingham or Augusta County that they've stocked yet. But keep an eye on that, especially as we get more water. You'll see more options show up. cool temperatures. It's a great time to be out on the water. There's a lot of people that spend more time hunting, myself included, but sometimes that will cut down on the pressure a little bit and spread some stuff out. Last thing I'll say, we're getting into wading season. So think about your waders, think about your boots, that kind of thing. That's going to be important for getting out and having more access to water. If you need waders and boots, we've got a lot of stuff on sale right now. Some previous stuff from older seasons, but also a lot of new stuff. We'd love to get you fitted. We've got all kinds of price points, can get you in what's comfortable, but get you out there and getting to enjoy the cooler water. As always, thanks for listening. I know we dropped a lot on you, but give us a call. Whether you have more questions about this, need help heading somewhere new, whatever it is, let us know. We're happy to help. We'll see you next week. Thanks.